The European Union and many member states' governments have sought to lead the world in tackling climate change.
I want the European Green Deal to become Europe's hallmark. At the heart of it is our commitment to becoming the world's first climate-neutral continent.
Through aggressive target-based policy making, the European Council hopes to make the entire continent carbon neutral by 2050. But green policies have created new economic problems for Europe's poorest people and for businesses. The consequences of green policies are already starting to be felt, and Europe is still a long way from its goals. To achieve them, governments may have to contain widening social discontent and political tensions and manage the harm that is being done to Europe's economy. Can Europe's green experiment make it a world leader in sustainability, or has a doomed policy agenda already given the world a lesson in unsustainable policy making? Unrealistic ideas about renewable energy have been at the heart of policymakers' green agenda since its beginnings.
We have a fantastic amount of resource in wind energy, and we can potentially produce enough electricity to fuel 33 million homes. Now, we've only got 24 million homes, so this is a real prospect of us becoming a net energy exporter again, as we were at the peak of North Sea oil and gas.
Despite their promises, wind and solar developers have been unable to compete with their fossil fuel counterparts. Public subsidies were needed to guarantee investors' profits. Consequently, where countries set more ambitious targets for wind and solar investment, domestic energy prices rose the most. Across the EU 28, domestic energy prices have risen, leading to hardship.
Energy poverty is a condition where a family or individuals cannot get their daily rations of energy that are needed to sustain their lives. We are a tropical species that moved to more to north and to northern latitudes, and what we really need is thermal security in winter time and in autumn. If we talk about public health effects, energy poverty is already affecting, especially during cold spells, vast areas in Europe. Especially elderly people cannot afford energy. If you cannot provide your home with electricity, like that's the case in Germany now, that there is a significant proportion of population is without electricity. It makes your life much harder. It has affected especially, let's say, Poland, Germany, homeless people, up to UK. The worst I've seen in the EU statistics is the situation has been very bad in Greece during the years after the years of this 2008 and recession. It has been so bad that it has not only affected families' ability to have access to electric grid and to higher quality fuels, but it has also meant that you have cut trees and you are also polluting atmosphere. Ambient air pollution has been aggravated by recession.
The target of German government is at the end 2050 having reached a zero emission for Germany. Each consumer has to pay 6 euro cent per kilowatt hour. That is more or less a quarter of the electricity price is now going to finance the wind turbines, the photovoltaic in Germany, and so on. We are nearing the poverty frontier. It will end up in a social and economic disaster.
But these problems have caused very little concern in Brussels. Bigger problems for Europe's leaders have been caused by the rising cost of industrial energy. The EU has the highest energy prices among all G20 countries. In some member states, the burden of high industrial energy costs has been carried by domestic consumers. Energy-intensive industries were subsidized in order to allow them to compete.
The main point is that we have the highest prices of electricity in Europe and in the world. In Europe, only Denmark is on the same level, and electricity is the foodstuff for all enterprises and business. New growth is not done in such an environment of high energy prices.
Heavy industry has been increasingly shifted out of the EU to countries where cheaper energy is available and where environmental standards are lower.
Up to now, the economy is working. If this is changing, and we are now at the brink of the economic development, the government has now made a proposal, a law to reduce CO2 in the next 10 years. The Greens and the left say that is not enough. They are asking to forbid vehicles for diesel and gasoline vehicles 2030. They want to forbid the oil and gas heatings in 2025. And they say we want not to build any roads beyond 2025. You know that the vehicle industry in Germany is one of the most powerful in the world. That is our central heart of economy. Millions of people are dependent on these products from Audi, from BMW, from Mercedes-Benz.
New climate legislation has contributed to the fall in Europe's share of global wealth and the loss of member states' international competitiveness. Germany now seems to be on the brink of recession, with its industrial sector leading other sectors of the economy into decline.
Those who act first and fast will be the ones who grasp the opportunities from the ecological transition. I want Europe to be the front runner. I want Europe to be the exporter of technologies, knowledge, best practice.
Green energy projects, hailed as the answer to economic problems, seem instead to have trapped European countries in economic stagnation.
Are you worried about your future? And is climate change one of your concerns?
Despite the billions of euros that have been spent on Europe's green agenda, progress towards Europe's climate goals now seems to have stalled.
How about we tackle all these problems at the same time? Europe is showing the way towards a safe and prosperous low-carbon future for our planet and our economy.
Greenhouse gas emissions in half of the EU's member states, including 14 of the 19 largest countries, have risen since 2014. Consequently, green campaigning organisations have complained that all EU countries are missing their Paris Agreement targets. The generous subsidies that European governments have given to green energy generators have become politically and economically unsustainable. Rising prices have become a political liability.
This government will publish a draft bill to put a price cap on energy bills, meeting our manifesto promise and bring an end to rip-off energy prices once and for all.
Ever greater interventions have been needed to cope with the problems that green policies have caused to an increasingly complex market. Without the support of government promises to guarantee profits, between 2011 and 2017, investment in renewables halved in Europe. In the 2 years after 2015, investment in solar energy in the UK halved. In 2018, not a single wind turbine was installed in 12 of the 28 EU member states. In early 2019, new onshore wind installations in Germany fell to their lowest level for 20 years. This has been embarrassment to the country which hosted the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change's 23rd meeting in 2017.
I'm hoping for a strong signal throughout the world. We are staying together and we will fight against climate change.
Shortly after the conference, it emerged that Germany would fail to meet its 2020 targets for emissions reduction, energy consumption and renewable energy production. These failures have signalled to the world that not even advanced and wealthy countries can meet the targets they set without causing great hardship.
Europe can take the lead. Let's make our economy climate neutral by 2050. Our economy would grow. Fossil fuel imports would fall. Above all, our quality of life would improve. So, how can we do it?
Europe's ambitious green policies face many technical and political challenges. Targets have been set without any idea about how to achieve them. Despite European leaders' statements of unity and commitment, green values are not shared across Europe. In the recent EU parliamentary elections, European Green Party successes were confined to the north and the west of Europe. There is growing scepticism of green policies where incomes are generally significantly lower. The hardships felt by Europe's citizens as a result of rising prices and loss of competitiveness have caused a polarisation of European politics, with the centre losing to ascendant populist parties. The parties of the centre and mainstream have tried to resolve this political crisis by forming a grand coalition.
Voti favorevoli 383.
This coalition enabled the selection of Ursula von der Leyen as President of the European Council. But von der Leyen's presidency is extremely fragile. Of 733 MPs, only 383, or 52%, voted for her in an election in which she stood unopposed. On becoming elected, von der Leyen announced that there would be new, further-reaching green targets. The EU would double down on its policies that have proven failures.
I will put forward a Green Deal for Europe in my first 100 days in office. It means change. All of us and every sector will have to contribute, from aviation to maritime transport to the way each and every one of us travels and lives. Emissions must have a price that changes our behavior.
Meanwhile, even within the greenest of EU member states, these green policies have triggered political crises. France has seen a year of protests sparked by green taxes that added to the rising cost of living. People have been killed and hundreds of people have been seriously injured while demanding the president's resignation. In the Netherlands, farmers, angry about the increasing burden of environmental regulations, have organised protests that brought the country to a standstill. These protests are reactions to policies that have been set without any idea of how they will be achieved, and take no account of the opinions of people for whom they will cause hardship.
We have a lot of legislation in pipeline which threatens energy security of a general population. The election results in Netherlands and the Yellow Vest movement in France, these are really wake-up calls.
Europe's green policy experiments, far from saving the planet, seem instead to have tipped Europe closer towards economic and political chaos.
We are muddling through, but I'm quite sure that this will change, because first we will see the negative consequences of the Energiewende in the next years. Let's be 1 day or 2 days blackout that they realize what they have done. The second is the employment will suffer in the next years because of decreasing stability of the economy, not only in Germany but worldwide. And therefore, on top, we think we could go out of reliable energy, of doing holding our our wealth without industrial processes, and that will not work. And therefore, it is a matter of, let's say, 2 or 3 years when this will crash.